The Atlanta Braves made 5 selections on day 1 of the MLB Draft, and they both did exactly what we thought they would do and surprised us a little bit with what they did on day 1. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on into Braves Today, a production of the Belief Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby. And for those of you on YouTube, you can see I am clearly on location. This is a hotel room in Lawrenceville, Georgia. I was at Gwinnett Field tonight as a guest of the Gwinnett Stripers for their victory over the Memphis Redbirds. The AJ Smith-Shawver rehab start. Lots of fun, a lot of great content coming out of that the next day or two. But I want to talk about the MLB Draft because the Braves both surprised us and did exactly what we thought they were going to do, right? The surprising thing here on day 1 of the draft is Atlanta took 2 college outfielders with their first 2 picks. AJ Gracia of Virginia, Carter Beck, and Indiana State, right? That is more college outfielders in the first round than Atlanta has taken in the previous 61 MLB drafts combined. The Braves, 1991, they took Mike Kelly in the first round. That is the only college outfielder they have ever taken in the first round. So a little bit of surprise there, right? Not what we expected to happen. At the same time, they also did exactly what we thought they were going to do, right? They found an opportunity to go under slot with some picks early so that they had extra money to grab some prep players in rounds 3 and 4 and 5. Okay. So let's talk about the 5 guys they took. Let's talk about what we've learned about these guys, what we know about these guys, and kind of understand the strategy of what the Braves did. Again, quick reminder, if the audio sounds different, those of you who are on audio, I apologize. This is a mobile setup while I'm in a hotel. But hey, the Gwinnett Stripers won. We had a great time. AJ Smith-Shawver looked really good until he didn't. I'll talk about that later in the show. Not today. I'll talk about a different show. So AJ Gracia out of Virginia, first round pick, number 9 overall, 6'3", 195, lefty hitter. And the thing to know about AJ is this isn't really that far ahead of where people thought he would go, right? A lot of the predictions, the high that he was number 9 overall, right? I think Perfect Game had him at number 9. So it's not a shock there. Baseball America had him at 14. MLB Pipeline had him at 18. He was seen as a first-round talent. He was not necessarily seen as number 9 overall outside of Perfect Game. And there is a little bit of money savings that is likely going to come as part of that pick, right? So this year, just really good offensive performance. He hit 354 for the Cavaliers, 489 on base, 632 slug, 14 homers. He walked more than he struck out. A really kind of good season. And when you look at the underlying components to the slash line, it's a guy that had above average exit velocities, really, really good barrel rates, really, really low in zone whiff rates, really low strikeout rates, really high walk rates. Like yes, maybe it's a little bit high at 9. He'll be under slot, but it's not a shock that he's a first round pick, right? Really talented player, really polished college hitter. David Seifert of D1PB talked about just really polished college hitter, good balance, really good mix of contact and power, great selection. His best tool is his hit tool, right? He is somewhere between a 55 to 60. And it's not only that he makes consistent contact and doesn't whiff a lot, but he's really good at getting the barrel on the ball and not only making consistent contact, but making quality contact, right? There can be such a thing as too much contact. If you're a guy that is making weak, ineffective contact, right? Ground balls, pop ups, things like that. That's not necessarily a good thing. AJ Gracia is really a guy that is making a lot of contact, but it's quality contact. Okay. The power, the exit, the exit velocity data wasn't incredibly overwhelming, right? The, I would argue like his max exit velos were somewhere around 110 or so, which again, metal bats in college. I would argue that what it felt like from watching him is that a lot of his exit velocities and the underperformance there is related to his approach, right? That he's trying to focus on making contact and not whiffing. And so there are times when he makes suboptimal contact. I think the power ultimately is 20 to 80 scale is a scouting scale. 50 is average. I think it's somewhere between 55 and 60, right? The hit tool is 55 to 60. The power is probably 55 or so. The thing that does concern me is like he's a decent defender. He played college. He played center field in college. A lot of center field at Virginia. He's going to be a corner outfielder. And I don't think the arm is that great. I don't think his speed's that great. So he's probably a left fielder in pro ball. And I don't love the idea of taking a left fielder in the top 10. But again, this is an offensive first player. If he is stuck in left field, that does mean there's extra pressure on the bat to carry a little bit more weight because left field is the least valuable defensive position of all three. So again, played center field in college, not going to do it in the pros. The speed's not great. So definitely going to have to move to left field. And so he's going to have to be a little bit better offensively than he currently is. But it's a really nice swing. It's a really it's a quality package. I'm not too terribly concerned about the idea of, hey, this guy's going to just be a liability. I don't think he's going to be like, I like the package. Again, my only complaint, I think, is that he's probably a corner outfield profile. And I would have rather at that point in the draft be taking somebody who had a realistic probability of playing up the middle, right? Of playing center field. But really good player. He is an offensive oriented guy. And honestly, the ceiling is all-star caliber player. And I do think like the floor is pretty decent because he has good contact ability. And I'm a believer in ceiling over floor when you're picking this high. And I do think the ceiling's there. You're going to have to develop that power. You're going to have to get that power more consistent. Some of it's going to be launch angle. Some of it's going to be approach. You're going to have to get it there. But very promising player. I would give this, assuming he comes in slightly under slot, which I think he will. No inside knowledge there. I think he will come in under slot. If he comes in under slot, I'm giving the pick probably a B, right? I'm going to say probably this is a B pick. It's not a slam dunk A, but what this does, this sets you up for a lot of great stuff later. And speaking of, Carter Beck at 26 really sets you up for some great stuff later. Let's talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby on location here in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Just finished a game with the Gwinnett Stripers. They did win. AJ Smith-Shawver looked good in his rehab start until he didn't. More on that on the show later. We're talking about the MLB Draft, though. Pick number 26 was surprising, right? Carter Beck, Indiana State outfielder. He's transferred around a couple different places. He's from Canada. So if you're a believer that the Braves have unlocked something with Canadian players and like identifying them, then hey, great, cool. I did notice more Canadian players going earlier in the draft. I don't know if that's the Eric Hartman effect or if that's just a coincidence, but I did notice the Braves having success with Eric Hartman. It appears that some teams scouted Canada enough where they were confident to go to those guys early. So Carter Beck, let's be clear up front. Carter Beck was not predicted to be a first round pick. Carter Beck was predicted to be in the 100s. I saw him as high as like 45 or 50, but like MLB Pipeline had him at 193, right? So this is a money-saving type of pick. Now, he did gain a lot of helium late, right? The guys that gained a lot of ground late in the process, we call it helium, right? They're rising, they have a lot of helium. He did gain a lot of helium. He is a guy, unlike Gracia, that they believe can actually stick in center field, right? Really good contact in the strike zone. So the zone whiff is very, very low. I want to say the what was it? In 26, I've got the stats here. In 26, the end zone width, he was 94th percentile. So he was one of the best hitters in the country at not swinging and missing in the zone. Whiff rate in general, didn't miss a lot at all. He was prone to chase a little bit, which is somewhat of a problem, but ended up hitting 335, 417 on base, 564 slug, 11 homers, 56 RBI. Very productive player. You do have questions about the level of competition. Unlike Gracia, I could see a world where Carter Beck gets put in single A to start the year. That they probably don't challenge him too much, and they want to make sure he's ready before they move him up into high A. Just, I can see that happening because of questions about the quality of competition and how, because of that, opinions were wildly different as to the quality that he was, right? Again, Overslot had him like in the around 50. Baseball America, ESPN had him around 70. Perfect Game had him at like 150. MLB Pipeline had him in the 190s. This is a significant Overslot deal. The biggest feature of this is he has traits that you like. You're impressed with what Carter Beck can do, but also you are saving a lot of money over the slot value here so that you can use it on some preps. If you want to go back to bravestoday.com and look at some of the write-ups that Taylor did as part of our draft preview, he talked about Atlanta's pattern under Ronit Shaw, who is shout out Ronit Shaw. We love Ronit Shaw here. We are Ronit Shaw stands on this show, about how he likes to underslot someone early so that he can turn around and have additional money to get a prep that has fallen because teams are concerned about how much it will take to sign him. And they can reach out, they can find out what that number is, and they can meet that number, and they can add a first-round talent in the third or fourth or fifth round. And they did that today. We're going to get to those guys. So 2 college outfielders in the first round. Literally something they have never done before. This is more college outfielders in the first round than they have ever taken in all of the other years of the draft combined. I had that stat in the first segment. So in a vacuum, I understand that Carter Beck may not be that impressive on its face. The 2 things you need to know are, 1, he has gained a lot of helium in the last couple weeks, the last couple months, whatever. And it's entirely possible, especially because, like, I'm going to say this politely. I know some of the guys at MLB Pipeline, like I've talked to them off camera and on camera, whatever. I'm not shocked that some of the more detail-oriented outlets have this guy in the 40s and 50s, and they have him at 193, right? I think if you just say he's 193 on Pipeline's list, you're kind of burying the lead on how good the consensus is about Carter Beck. But also, even if you assume that 40 to 50 was the range of where people thought he should be, you are saving money by taking him at 26, which let the Braves grab 3 different talents that could be in other years could have been considered first round picks. So pick number 48, Vermont prep righty Caden McCarthy. This is something that we've talked about a couple different times in writing, in pods. He is a kid that reclassified into this class, meaning he is young for the class. He was supposed to be a junior this year, and he reclassified to be a senior and get drafted a year early. So the Braves like this. Cam Kennedy was one of these kids. That is a player who is younger than than most prep pitchers. So right there, you have that's if you're taking a list of the things the Braves look for in the draft, this is a kid that has less development than most kids in his peer comport, right? Because he skipped a year of high school. He is behind a lot of them developmentally. Okay. So thing number 1 to know about him is that. Thing number 2, the fastball is the star here. The Braves had a problem for a while. You can see it in J.R. Ritchie. You can see it a little bit in Owen Murphy. They took pitchers that were throwing in the low 90s. And their thought process was, we can give these guys multiple pitches. We can work on sequencing and utilization, and we can get MLB starters out of these guys. What they didn't have was velocity. And the Braves have not been as successful as they would like at building velocity on the guys like Ritchie, on the guys like Murphy. McCarthy's fastball touches 99 miles an hour as a 17-year-old. Looked fantastic at the combine. So already he has a standout tool. I've seen a lot of grades have this pitch as a 60 grade pitch. So it is well above average. Again, 20 to 80 on the scouting scale, 50 is average. And you do half grades. You do 40, 45. You do half grades around 50, right? 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. So 60 is a full standard deviation above average. So his fastball is already really, really good. He also has a slider. He has a curveball. He has a changeup. The Braves have shown the ability, both under the old pitching development regime and the guys they have now, to significantly improve sliders and make them better pitches. And I've said this before. It's hard to have a bad gyro slider that's over 85 miles an hour. I think they can get it there. I think it's very realistic they can get it there. He has an above average curveball. He has a changeup that's pretty decent. The command, he can throw strikes, which is not always something you see from a kid throwing in the 90s. So he is a prep pitcher with a great velo base that you can work off of, right? He's got multiple breaking balls. He's got a changeup. He can throw some strikes. And he is young for the class and from a cold weather area in the Northeast. I think it's from Vermont, right? I think he's from Vermont. Yes, Vermont. So he is a guy, like the Braves do a lot, that has less development on him than a typical guy in his peer group, right? Prep pitchers. He has less development than most of those guys. So the Braves can theoretically add more to him than most guys can, which is a big deal, right? This is totally a thing that we want Atlanta to do. This is part of what they like to do, right? This is how they like to approach these things. So absolutely big fan of this. Really enjoy what they've done so far in this draft. And you can kind of see the image here of, hey, we're going to save a little bit of money and we're going to try to jump in and we're going to try to grab some of these guys. In just a minute, let's talk about the last 2 preps because, again, Ronit Shaw kind of cooked here. And we'll talk about that next right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves today. Lindsey Crosby here on location in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Shout out to the Stripers and specifically broadcast associate Brady Penn. Had a great time with them today. Brady and I were actually shooting a video about AJ Gracia's selection when I'm pretty sure lightning hit like just past the outfield and scared the heck out of us. It's in if you go to our YouTube, you go to my Twitter account, Instagram, whatever, the video's there. It's pretty funny how Brady just powers through it, right? Like I ducked out of camera. Brady's just like in frame the whole time. Like, no, we're getting the shot. We're doing this. We're powering through. Okay. Pick number 84 for the Braves. Another righty, California prep Jensen Hirschkorn. And the thing here, another kid that was projected to be a first rounder. And I'm guessing of the 3 preps that they're going to overslot, he is the one that's the most expensive. Okay. 6'7", 205. He's an LSU commit. And anybody who knows college baseball and knows the draft knows that LSU has a lot of money to spend on baseball. And LSU, more so than anybody else, is willing to pay their guys to ignore or reject the MLB teams and report to campus. So I'm guessing of the 3 preps that they are going to overslot here, he is going to be the most expensive. And I don't imagine it's that close. I imagine he's probably going to be, he might take $1 million more than the other runs simply because of where he is, where he's committed to. And that's how LSU works, right? The rankings, he's everywhere from like 30 to 50, right? And again, Brady's got him at 84. So the thing to know here, another guy, like one, big body. He has the frame. He doesn't have the weight yet. So there is physical development to be done there, right? And if you're kind of concerned about adding weight, pitchers will tell you mass equals gas, okay? 6'7", 205, he is undersized for that frame. Despite that, he's touched 96. He has both a 4-seamer and a 2-seamer. He has a fantastic slider already. We can teach sliders. He's got a really good one already. He has a changeup. It's not great, but it's there. He's going to need, obviously, to develop more of the arsenal. I would imagine we're going to give him some sort of additional breaking ball. I would assume a curveball, just because the Braves seem to not be very good at coaching sweepers and getting sweepers to stick on their guys. They've tried to give guys sweepers. They tried to give AJ Smith-Shawver a sweeper. It didn't work. He eventually said, no, I'm going to go back to my standard gyro slider, and good thing it's been good. But the Braves are going to give him, they're going to give his court some sort of additional breaking ball. Again, I assume a curveball. We don't know. The thing about him, though, is the command is really good. The thing about those super tall pitchers, those 6'7" kids like Hitchcock is usually they struggle with command when they're young like this because of proprioception. This is the idea of understanding what your body is doing in space, right? So understanding where your limbs are at any point in time and just having that innate sense of coordination and everything with your body. A lot of the super tall pitchers don't have that yet, right? Think of it like a baby horse. They're wobbly on their legs until they figure out how to use them. That's a 6'7" prep pitcher, right? He's an exception. There's pretty decent command there already. So it's entirely possible that as he continues to mature, both physically, in baseball, whatever, he can be the rare super tall dude that ends up with above average or plus command, which is obviously a huge asset. You give him a big fastball, couple different breaking balls, great command, you have a really, really promising player. He's probably the highest ceiling of any of the guys we took in day one, honestly. I think he's super projectable, pretty advanced already for a prep arm. But again, You've got to add mass here. 6'7", 205. You've got to add some more size, and you have to make sure that he's able to do everything as he physically matures, right? I expect him to move a little bit slower, but this is a legitimate potential top of the rotation arm if he hits his 95th percentile projection, right? If he does everything we're expecting him to do, he's going to be one of the best players coming out of this draft. That's the ceiling here. The last guy they took, 112th overall, prep right-hander Cole Dennis out of the state of Florida. Going to be another overslot kid. Stop me if you've heard this before. He's still only 17 years old. Braves getting a guy who's young for the class that has more development ahead of him than the usual guy does, right? He's out of Jacksonville, 6'4", 215. He's got good size already. When you get to this point in the draft, this happens, but a lot of variance in where he is seen to be. I've seen as high as 116. It's ESPN. I've seen as low as 350. Baseball America. They're kind of an outlier. Most of them are in the 100s or early 2s, right? They're kind of the outlier at 356, but just a lot of variance in the projections for him. He's going to be overslot, but at the MLB Draft Combine, he was throwing 96. I do think the fastball itself is a little bit iffy, right? He does have some issues with the fastball as far as command of it and consistency of it, but the talent is there. The slider looks like it can be plus in the future. I've seen some good ones. I've seen some bad ones. It's just really inconsistent. The changeup is not, and this is common with high school pitchers. The changeup is not anything special. It's probably below average right now. The question here is going to be the third pitch. Is it the changeup? Can you make it better? Is it a different pitch? And then can you kind of lock in the command a little bit? It's a little bit shaky command-wise. It's why he fell as long as he could. But again, he's young for the class. He was a two-way player in high school. So this fits the Braves pattern of looking for guys that have more development ahead of them than the typical player, than one of their peers in the class. So again, the Braves were unusual in that they took two college outfielders. But they did exactly what we thought they would do in taking some underslot options early so they could then overslot some young for the class, talented prep arms with more development ahead of them. So they were both unusual and exactly what we thought. And in isolation, right, if you just think about, hey, Carter Beck at 26, it's an awful pick. If you just say, why did you take a guy that was projected 40s, 50s, all the way, as high as 193 on Pipeline? Although, again, I think that's a little bit doing him wrong, right? If you take, why'd you take that guy at 26, doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you think about what doing that and taking a player who probably should be considered in the 40s or 50s, and you save a significant amount of money to go get 3 first-round talents, prep pitchers to sign with you in the second and third and fourth, all of a sudden, day one of the draft as a whole looks a lot better than just looking at some of these picks in isolation. So this is the idea for the Braves, right? We got some college outfielders who are theoretically going to be a little more fast moving and guys that have a decent floor, right? The ceiling could be high, especially on Gracia, but the floor is pretty decent already. And then we turned around and used the money we saved there to get 3 prep players who have amazing ceilings. And arguably, Atlanta should have come away at most with one of those guys. And if Atlanta just drafts with the best player that's projected around that area when they're picking, they come away with one of those players. But instead, Ronit Shaw said, hey, we're going to underslot Grassi a little bit. We're going to underslot Carter Beck a lot. And we're going to take that money that we save and we're going to go grab 3 first-round kids. It's hard to think about this draft as anything other than an amazing success on day one. Again, based on the information we have right now, based on where the consensus from the external evaluators said these guys should have been taken. So, really excited about this draft. Really excited with what we did. Curious to see what happens on day 2. I'll be driving back from Gwinnett tomorrow. The goal tomorrow night is to get another podcast out recapping that. And then Monday morning, the usual pod is going to be recapping the series over the weekend. The IL placements, Mike Yastrzemski goes on the IL. They call up Brewer Hicklin. They call up Owen Murphy back out of Gwinnett. Fun fact, we were actually supposed to talk to Owen Murphy. And they were getting ready. We're about 30 minutes out from when we're going to go talk to him. And they found out, they can't talk to him because he's getting called up. And the first thing somebody did was turn to me and say, hey, you can't tweet that yet. You cannot tweet that until the Braves announce it. So you can't break that news because we told you can't do that. But we'll talk about the roster moves. We'll talk about the injuries. The Cardinals series, which as of now, they have lost. They lost the first 2 games of the series. We'll talk about all of that on Monday's show. But there'll be another show on Sunday night detailing the rest of the draft, thoughts on some of those other guys. And then there'll be a show at some point in time next week. The plan is to have Gorov on to break down this draft again. Next week during the All-Star break is also our annual vacation. We'll have a couple of days off, probably like Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll be back on Friday. I'll update you guys on that later in the week. Thanks for watching the video. Please like the video. Please subscribe both here and at bravestoday.com. And we'll see you next time on Braves Today.